Welcome to a quick tutorial on how to solve a problem inside of Make.com where your scenario runs out of its complexity budget. So this can happen in different softwares, but normally there is a payload maximum that you can send across via webhook. And so Make.com, in this case I've got set it up for Monday.com here, is going to max out as the number of payloads it can send to the application. So the maximum amount of information it can send across is sort of arbitrary. Each software will define what that maximum is, and some softwares have limits that are defined based on the plan that you're using. So sometimes you can solve this by just increasing your plan or contacting the software developer team. Anyhow, the problem looks like this. You will get an email that will have some form of this message right here. It's item link max locks exceeded, which just means that it exceeded the amount of information get passed through. So it looks like this. Sometimes it'll be called complexity budget, and then there's another name for it that's escaped my mind right now. But all pretty much means the same thing. What happens is if you have a large store of information that you're trying to pass through one account to update a specific software, and it'll try to process that all at the same time. So you can see there's a bunch of requests in here. There's about 50 something requests in here, and they all try to run at the exact same time. So you can see it ran at 4:51, 25, and all these ran in a pretty fast sequence all at once. So if I try to run this, you can see that there's 78 records that are trying to be processed. Hit run. It will run just fine if I run one scenario as it is. If I try to turn it on, it'll give me the error again because I'm trying to pass through too much at once. So the solution is super simple. There's a little scenario settings icon down here. Go in there, and there's a thing called sequential processing. If you just switch it over from no to yes. All that does is it just does one at a time instead of all of them at once. By default, it'll try to push through as much information as possible, as fast as Make.com can push it out, which typically will exceed any maximum limits of information you can send to the individual software. So Monday.com can only receive so much information at once. We're only allowed to receive so much information at once. And so by doing changes to sequential, it will just do one at a time and do them back to back instead of trying to shove everything at once. So if we go ahead and turn this back on, you'll see that this, oh, there we go, slowing down. So it'll do one at a time. So it ran that one, and then it's going to run a new one. It's going to run a new one. And so it'll just process these through one at a time. Now, I'll know that this does take a lot longer, especially if you have hundreds of records. This might take, depending on how big your scenario is, it may take several minutes or several hours to run, but it's just a lot safer normally. I find that this happens most often when you set up a scenario that, say, is going to be creating a series of tasks, like automation to create a series of tasks on a certain day of the month, and you have multiple of those scenarios or multiple of those situations running at the same time. Say it's like the first of the month and you want to generate a task for each client, and you've got 100 clients. That'd be like 100 tasks, and tries to run through all those at once. That's typically the most common scenario that this error will come up, because it's just shoving too much in at once. And you won't typically see this come up until you've actually let it do its thing. So when you're building this and you're just running one scenario at a time, you won't have this issue typically, because you're only sending a small amount of information. But later on, when you turn it on and you hit the first of the month, for example, it'll try to shove everything in at once and it just won't work. So I'll show you what this looks like in comparison. I'm going to turn it off here, and I'm going to change the setting to no, save the scenario, and then I'm going to turn this on again. Oops, using this data, and you'll see, oops, what's going to happen is, well, once I turn it on, process all data, it's going to try to process these all at once. So you'll see there's 1 there, 2 there, 3 there, 4 there. So it'll just add all of these things at once, and pretty soon these will start to turn into errors. So right now it's running successfully, but it will very momentarily hit its limit. There we go. So I have error, 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 error. And so to prevent your inbox just getting filled with errors, it just changes to sequential, and that will solve the problem.